Coming up on Network Africa. Situation under control in Sudan after a coup attempt fails. Government says the coup plotters are linked to ex-President Omar al-Bashir. At least 3 people killed after a grenade blast in Burundian city Bujumbura. Plus, South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma fails to appear at High Court for the resumption of his corruption trial. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin in Sudan, where the cabinet has reported that the situation is under control after a failed coup attempt. The state news agency SUNA reports that those involved in the coup bid have now been detained and are being investigated. Several coup attempts have taken place in Sudan since former President Omar al-Bashir was removed from power in 2019 and the military took over. Critics claim the current security lapses in parts of the country are an attempt by the military to obstruct the transfer of the leadership of the powerful Sovereign Council to civilians. Well, the transfer is scheduled for November.
On Tuesday, an urgent announcement broadcast on state television.
Honorable citizens, we received this urgent statement. The media advisor to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Taha Abu Haja, announces the foiling of a coup attempt.
A government source speaking on a condition of anonymity says the apparent coup attempt that began on Monday had involved an effort to take control of the state radio in Omdurman. It's located across the river now from the capital, Khartoum. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok says the attempted coup in Sudan was organized by elements inside and outside the military establishment, leading to the first arrest of those involved in such a plot. According to him, the failed attempt was preceded by attempts to sow insecurity, especially in the east of Sudan, but had failed to undermine the country's democratic transition.
What happened is an orchestrated coup by factions inside and outside armed forces, and this is an extension of the attempts by remnants since the fall of the former regime to abort the civilian democratic transition. This attempt was preceded by extensive preparations represented by the lawless in the cities and the exploitation of the situation in the east of the country, closed national roads and ports and block oil production, and the continued incitement against the civilian government.
A witness says the military had used tanks to close a bridge connecting Khartoum with Omdurman early on Tuesday. The country is governed under a fragile power-sharing deal between the military and civilians. And that's since the former president Omar al-Bashir was overthrown in 2019. Transitional authorities say they have foiled or detected previous coup attempts linked to factions loyal to Bashir.
The signing of South Sudan's peace deal in 2018 not only ushered in an era of renewed hope across the war-torn country, but also included a very special provision, 35% representation for women across the political decision-making. Well, 3 years later, much remains to be done to ensure that these numbers are attained. So in doing this, the gender unit of the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, recently organized a 2-day workshop in Juba in collaboration with civil society organizations to bring together a cross-section of opinion makers, women leaders, as well as female journalists, lawyers and human rights defenders to not only identify specific barriers to this goal, but also the role that each individual can play in breaking down these.
Very crucial that they get together, because we realized that following the recent appointments, different appointments at the national and subnational level in the political positions in South Sudan, the 35% affirmative action, which is provided for in the peace agreement, has actually not been met.
And women should also work hard to collaborate and network among each other, women in higher positions and women at the grassroots level, and also the young women activists and women lawyers, so that we can close the gap and work in harmony as women of South Sudan.
Women issues are so many, and we women sometimes we expect men to address our issues, and we need to address our issues. We have to be very articulated to our issues, because when we address our issues, we can reach to a solution. We have women who are actually educated, women who are graduate, and those ones, they can actually participate in public life.
As the media, we have recommended that the media should create programs that gears at promoting women participation and representation. So those programs should be created on different radios, whereby women can use the programs as a platforms to share their views. We also recommended profiling of women stories, whereby women leaders' profile can be published, and this can enhance and amplify the good work that women are doing to make it known to the public and to decision makers.
Somalia's Deputy Prime Minister says the International Court of Justice has set a date for the ruling of the maritime case between Somalia and Kenya. The ruling has been set for October the 12th. Well, this is despite Kenya withdrawing from the case, citing ICJ's bias, and called for a Somali judge in the panel to recuse himself. The case concerns a 62,000 square miles triangle in the Indian Ocean. The area is thought to be rich in oil and gas. The dispute is at the heart of a diplomatic row between the two neighbors. It has been going on for the last 6 years, keeping investors away because of a lack of legal clarity over who owns potential offshore oil and gas reserves. Somalia wants the maritime border to continue along the line of the land border to the southeast, while Kenya wants the sea border to go in straight line to the east. Well, the United States is urging Somalia's president and the prime minister to resolve their differences for the sake of the stability of the country. It says the cooperation of Somalia's leaders, especially President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo and Prime Minister Hussein Roble, are essential for the country to quickly complete its ongoing electoral process. The State Department calls on the President and the Prime Minister to avoid further provocative statements or actions and to resolve their disagreement over personnel appointments and their respective authorities peacefully. The row escalated last week after the president suspended the executive powers of Mr. Roble, a move swiftly rejected by the premier as unlawful. Well, the Horn of Africa nation is scheduled to hold indirect parliamentary elections between October 1st and the 25th of November. The U.S. says that any further delay may increase the potential for violence and plays into the hands of Al-Shabaab and other extremist groups seeking to destabilize the country. At least 3 people have been killed and dozens others injured in a series of explosions in Burundi's economic capital, Bujumbura. Witnesses say at least 2 grenades exploded in a bus parking area, causing panic. The third explosion targeted a market, and the fourth grenade exploded near a packed bus in the suburbs. Well, this comes a day after a deadly grenade explosion in a bar in the Burundian capital Gitega and a mortar attack in Bujumbura's airport on Saturday, which a rebel group, Red Tabara, said it carried out. South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma has failed to appear at the High Court in Pietermaritzburg for the resumption of his corruption trial. His lawyer told the judge that Mr. Zuma could not attend for medical reasons, that he is too sick to appear in court. Mr. Zuma is facing 16 counts of fraud and racketeering related to an arms deal in the 1990s, but he has denied the charges, insisting they're politically motivated. The 79-year-old is already serving a 15-month sentence for failing to testify in a separate corruption inquiry. He was recently granted medical parole and is set to be recovering from surgery. His arrest sparked a wave of violence back in July, in which more than 300 people were killed. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has met with the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, in New York ahead of his participation in the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezioke, reports that their discussions centered on getting manufacturers of vaccines to invest in the production in Nigeria and in Africa at large to reduce vaccine inequity and help economies recover faster. Well, the Foreign Affairs Minister, Jeffrey Oyema, has also been speaking on the President's address on Friday, which will be touching on the insecurity situation in the country and also woo foreign investors to the country. The federal government is hoping for a great outing as the general debates begin. Here in Nigeria, the Cross River State government has taken COVID-19 vaccination and sensitization to the camp of the internally displaced persons IDPs seeking refuge in the state. Speaking in Ogoja, local government area of the state, the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Betta Edu, explains that the health of everyone residing in the state is important, and the only way to achieving a good health coverage is to also ensure that the refugees also take part in the vaccination exercise. The state government is also calling on relevant bodies to support them in providing adequate care to the Cameroonian refugees. As Nigeria continues with the second phase of its vaccination exercise, equitable access to safe and effective vaccines remains critical to tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. However, beyond the risks associated with healthcare services, education, sanitation facilities, refugees and displaced population may now have to confront additional barriers, including access to vaccines. Adagom refugee camp in Ogoja local government area of Cross River State houses many displaced persons, majority of whom are women and children, mostly Cameroonians seeking refuge. The Cross River State government is embarking on a sensitization campaign to educate the refugees on the need to get vaccinated, assuring them of the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines.
We've been able to immunize some of them, and we're still sensitizing them as we started the second phase of the COVID-19 vaccines rollout, that they should take their vaccines and continue to do all they're supposed to do to protect themselves against COVID.
Some of the refugees are happy to be a part of the vaccination exercise.
I hope the vaccine is fine for us to take, so that we should not get COVID-19, even though we don't have that issue here in this camp.
Ensuring vaccination against COVID-19 for refugee and displaced populations are vital for an effective pandemic response. The former Commander-in-Chief of the Egyptian Armed Forces, Field Marshal Mohammed Hussein Tantawi, has died. Following the ousting of the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in 2011, the 85-year-old became the de facto head of state until the inauguration of Mohamed Morsi as President of Egypt 16 months later. He continued to serve in the government until August 2012. Still ahead on the program. It's building bridges for safety. Tunisian activists facilitate valley crossings by building safe bridges in an attempt to ease crossing between villages and also to reduce accidents. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. We continue with one of our top stories for today, the explosion in Bujumbura, Burundian's economic capital. At least 3 people were killed. We have joining us now Apollinaire Nishirimbere is a Burundian journalist. He joins us now on the program for more details. Thank you for speaking to us on the program. What more can you tell us about this grenade blast that has seen 3 people killed? Apollinaire, if you can hear me, I was asking what more you can tell us
yes,
about... All right, good to have you.
There were some blasts 2 days ago. There were grenade launch and rocket launch near the airport in Bujumbura this week, like 2 days ago. But these are acts of terrorism, and which need to be understood in the context of Burundi. As you know, in Burundi, since 2015, there were groups of people who were claiming the power to overturn the government of the ruling party, and then the coup was foiled, and they went into exile from Rwanda. Now, you know, there is a new government that was put up during the election of 2020, whereby we have a new president who is now conducting some reforms. So those people now are coming back with no claims, and this needs to be understood as act of terrorism. As you know, the context, this is like something which is bis repetita, what we call a deja vu in Burundian context. Every time that there is a UN General Assembly or a UN Human Rights Commission taking place in Geneva, or some other international meetings like that, there are always acts of terrorism that those people carry on for them to be heard. So I think that this doesn't have to do with the claims of power like some years ago, but it has to be understood as acts of terrorism as it is in all over the world, in other countries like in your own country, in Nigeria or in the Middle East.
All right. You were just, talking about, a series of similar explosions that happened, one in Gitega and even over the weekend, just like you mentioned, at the airport. Talk to us about what this means for the security situation in the country.
This, as I was saying, this means that we are coping with terrorist attack. That which need to be dealt with as easy at the international level. Those attacks need to be condemned by international community, because no one, even if that group of Red Tabara has claimed that they were the ones who conducted the attacks, we are not sure that they are, because it was just a Twitter that was written. So as I see it as just an act of terrorism, because there is no claim, no political claim. Because in 2015 they were claiming that the former president Nkurunziza was on his third term, but now he is no longer, and we have a new government which is conducting reforms, fighting against corruption and promoting good governance. So we don't know what those people are intending to reach. So,
right.
but as I see it, as I was saying it, it's in the context of just telling the world that they are there, because the UN as I was telling you, there is now currently a UN general meeting. There is in Geneva a UN Human Rights Commission taking to seek the renewal of the mandate of the Commission of Inquiry on Burundi. So all those, in this context, those people need to be heard and maybe put forward their claims, which we don't know.
All right then.
We don't know.
Apollinaire Nishirimbere, Burundian journalist, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
The United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO, has conducted a joint escort with the National Army of the DRC from Komanda, a city of Ituri province, to the North Kivu province. Now, this joint escort is initiated due to numerous attacks by ADF rebels on that particular road. Well, on the 1st of September 2021, for instance, an attack happened. Almost 20 vehicles were looted and burnt by the attackers. There have been many vehicles looted and burnt. Almost all villages have also been looted, burnt, and now they are empty because the inhabitants have fled towards other safe locations. MONUSCO has been providing not only its troops on the ground to protect the civilians in that region, but it also uses its helicopter to ensure security from the sky. For now, the joint escort is provided 3 times a week.
And from that we are doing it regularly. Each and every week we are conducting it. And convoy, escorting the convoy is a very important job for us, and we are taking it very seriously to ensure the protection of the civilians and the resources and the vehicles of the civilians. The challenges is the number of vehicles was much more previously, and securing all those vehicles and ensuring the security is a big challenge. But now we are limiting the vehicles to a limited number so that we can provide the best possible security, and even if there is any unforeseen situation, we can protect them with all our strength. We have escorted total 34 vehicles, 28 was trucks and 6 was normal cars and small cars, and there was a number of motorcycles also.
Tired of seeing community members struggle to move safely from one valley to another, Tunisian activists have been rebuilding old bridges between different valleys of Jendouba. Well, it's an attempt to ease crossing between villages and reduce accidents in the agricultural city in the northwestern region of Tunisia.
36-year-old Karim Arfa, a civil society activist, teamed up with engineers and other volunteers and began rebuilding bridges out of scrap metal and wood.
Due to the isolation of many areas, many engineers, civil society activists, and I decided to build iron bridges. We built 2 bridges before, and this is the 3rd one to break the isolation of the residents.
Their goal, they say, is to make crossing safer for residents, especially children who have previously died crossing rusted paths during the winter time. During the winter season, the valleys become flooded, making crossing a terrifying prospect to women and children who need to get to school or to the market.
When I cross, I crawl on the old bridge because it is unsafe, and there are those who can't cross. Before, crossing the under bridge made me feel dizzy, and the village women had to help me. That made us miserable. Now we thank God we can cross comfortably. We bring water from over there. Our animals can cross too. Thank God.
Arfa and his team have now built their 3rd iron bridge They hope to build more in the future.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.